bit further, didn't they? Went the whole hog, in fact. On The Good Life, of course, Tom and Barbara famously growing their own. But what the Bake Off did for cakes and the Sewing Bee for needlework, a new BBC series is hoping to do for growing vegetables. The Big Allotment Challenge begins on BBC Two tonight. 9 pairs of allotmenteers are given seeds and a patch of earth in a walled garden, and over the coming weeks then the challenge to produce the best fruit, veg and flowers under the eyes of some experienced judges. And Fern Britton, who's a keen gardener, it seems. The DUP's Sammy Wilson set up the student allotments, and Mick McEvoy is the community gardener at Colin Glen Allotments. They're both on the line now. Afternoon, folks.
Good afternoon.
Hello there. Good day for the allotment. I hear, Sammy Wilson, you've been planting this morning.
I was out this morning at 6:30, Wendy. The birds were singing, the sun was shining, and I was getting my potatoes planted this morning, and some other things just geared up to get ready now for the main planting before I get busy with the election. So I've got to get into the garden, get all my stuff planted, because from tomorrow onwards it'll be elections.
But you're going to have to go and look after these potatoes and other things that you've planted, though, aren't you?
Oh yes, I mean, normally a lot of my gardening will be done first thing in the morning anyway, because it's difficult for me to get started. It's the best time. I live in the country now, and but I had an allotment when I lived in town. I didn't have a garden then, and an allotment development. And from a very, very early age, of course, I always loved gardening. And then when I was finance minister, as part of the WellBeing programme that we had, we decided we would set up some allotments at Stormont Estate, and the response was overwhelming. When I first came to East Antrim here, some people came to see me about allotments in Carrickfergus, and Carrickfergus Council responded fantastically. There are now over 220 allotments in Carrickfergus, and Stephen Day, the officer in charge, has been very, very enthusiastic, and I think he could probably double that if the council could get the land. So it's dead popular, and it's not just with growing things. It's a social thing as well. Well,
that's a good point, and it's one I wanted to bring Mick McEvoy in, because that's something that you're keen on there too, isn't it? You've got a sort of edible landscape, Mick, haven't you?
Absolutely.
And a fair bit of crack.
It's fantastic, yeah. It's a community project that Groundwork Northern Ireland are working and developing with the local partnership, the Colin Neighbourhood Partnership in the Colin area of West Belfast. And it's about providing the green community infrastructure that is really lacking, and really an access to nutritious, locally grown, organic food, seasonal food. We're so out of the seasons, and there's so many benefits. The benefits to the physical health, for the physical exercise, but as Sammy mentioned, the well-being agenda, the mental health, and it's subtle mental health. When people are out on their allotments, on their plots, working together, they're immersed in nature, they're back becoming mindful of the seasons, which a lot of us have lost. Their hands are in the soil and the earth. There's peer-reviewed science to show that the microbacteria within the soil actually acts like Prozac. It stimulates the serotonin, the chemical in our brain, which makes us happy.
So it really is good for you.
It's really good for you, and we're reconnecting. It's been lost, really, maybe within the last generation. We've had a sense of food apathy. We've had a disconnect from our food.
So what are you growing at the moment? What's coming up at the moment that's seasonal that people are enjoying growing and eating?
At the minute, I just picked the most bumper crop of purple sprouting broccoli yesterday, and so many people are enjoying that on their plots in the Colin allotments at the minute. And it's so expensive. If you went into one of our supermarkets, high-end supermarkets, you would get a punnet for £3 or £4, but it's just prolific at the minute. The more you crop, the more you pick. And it's about sowing that one seed. If somebody's growing a lettuce on their windowsill on a balcony in the city centre, or somebody has a plot, just by growing a little bit of their own food, a sense of food empathy is being born, so people are connecting, and that's making a sort of an awakening with the food. So that subtly is making a connection with where they may buy their food. So maybe thinking about supporting local food producers, benefiting a local food economy, thinking about the globalisation effect, rather than having Chilean blueberries, grow them yourself on your balcony or on your allotment, benefit the local economy. But it's also about the community, as you touched on, and we really are trying to promote the new mantra, the new trinity of soil, soul and society, and you can see that up on the Colin allotments any day of the week. Go up today and you'll see it. We're very lucky. We're fortunate to have funding in place, and by the end of this year we'll have a new, as well as our community allotment on site, we'll have a new local food hub which would be a hub for education for schools and adults of all ages, to create these resilient communities where food security is a big issue. When we have climate change, we don't want to upset Sammy mentioning climate change, but it's, there's costs involved. There's cost to import our food, so we can grow it ourselves, so we can create a local and sustainable and resilient local food economy.
Yeah. It sounds like it's addictive. Was that the case with you, Sammy Wilson?
Oh, it certainly is addictive. I never kind of grew stuff to say that's the biggest onion that's been grown or the best cabbage. For me, the allotment was really an escape. You get there, you forget about all of the things you're dealing with during the day, and it is therapeutic. And indeed, I've just left a place here in East Antrim where a young girl set up a community, a garden, and she brings people who have suffered mental trauma, etc., and they work in that garden. And it's the whole idea. And medical people now say that this is a great way of helping people get through some of the traumas of life. That so it's good from that point of view. But
is it all the more important? What with global warming and that?
Well, I don't really. I don't get me down that route.
Well, I couldn't resist the temptation, Sammy.
I question we have to address our food security or food.
Well, let's just hear if we can get an answer out of Sammy on it.
Well, I take it that if people can grow their own food and learn where food comes from, that's important. Because sometimes I think that people forget that actually life is very fragile. Where if in some countries a bad harvest means that people starve. We often think, I think many people in Northern Ireland think, oh, you just go to the supermarket and it appears. The idea of the work that has to go into producing food is very important. Teaching youngsters, and many families, of course, now have allotments, teaching youngsters the value of food. The waste of food really, I think, will be reduced if people knew how much effort had to go into it. So I think more in that type of environmental way, rather than getting into the whole issue of global warming. Well,
Simon from Dungannon, Sammy sent me a text here saying, since you've sponsored allotments at Stormont, is it further evidence of the DUP being too green for their own good?
No, I'm quite happy to be called green in that context, because I think that's good green. I also know that the enjoyment that people get out of it. The other thing, of course, Wendy, and for people like me, I never go to the gym, but the exercise I get is when I go out in the garden and work and feel a little bit of sweat, digging, etc. So, even from that point of view, from physical well-being, the allotments are a great idea. And, of course, I can remember when I was a wee lad, and my uncle had an allotment. Allotments were dotted all around Belfast. For many people who lived in working class areas and didn't have a garden, that was their outlet, and some of them were fantastic gardeners, although there wasn't a bit of soil around their house, but they went to the allotments which were at Orangefield, at Belmont, at Hollywood Road, etc. Now, of course, they're less prevalent, but I think that more and more councils are becoming aware that this is a great recreational way of providing facilities, but also those facilities then being put to good use in educating people about where food comes from, getting them to grow their own food, their mental well-being, their physical well-being.
And as I understand it too, at Colin Glen, you go a step further and you're cooking it, you're going to be bringing all of that kind of aspect into it as well.
Absolutely. We're trying to close the loop. There's no waste involved. We're trying to show people what they can do with their food. So at the minute this week, I'll be enjoying the last of the winter veg with a beetroot and leek soup. But it's a bigger question. By small seeds, literally sowing small seeds, we can generate a boost to our local economy and a green economy, our local food economy. We're working with young people in the locality and beyond and across Northern Ireland to bring the next generation of horticulturists and growers on board. So that's this not just the high-end artisan food industry, but the local growers, people who may be inspired to set up a local food box, a veggie box. So it's about not just the good food and the fresh air and the mental health, but about stimulating that local food economy. We're in the midst of a food revolution, and it does come down to some of the big questions, the big global questions about food security, about how we, as we approach 9 billion on the planet, how we grow our food, how we, the sort of scale, it's bizarre, ships are coming into Northern Ireland and Ireland with the same number of potatoes, tons of potatoes that we're importing and exporting, all in the name of global trade. We can stimulate a very sustainable and resilient food economy by growing it ourselves and putting it on the national curriculum, getting everybody involved. So by having that sense of food empathy, by growing a little of your own food, we really are sowing a seed in our own minds that we can make informed decisions that will stimulate a local, resilient, green, food-based economy.
Well, thanks both of you for talking to us today. Sammy Wilson and Mick McEvoy there. And the allotment challenge, the Big Allotment challenge, begins on BBC Two tonight. If you've got a bit of ground, you could maybe see if you could keep up with them or do better than they can. While they're at it, grow a few things there. Keep in touch with us if you do, 81771, or on Twitter at Wendy Talks Back. I got a nice text in, actually, from Ballyclare caller who says, my father rented an allotment in the